Far, far away, there lived a green ogre named Shrek. He lived far away near a stinky swamp where no one ever came to visit. Shrek spent his days alone, which was just the way he liked it. One afternoon in the forest, a beast named Donkey bumped right into Shrek. The donkey started to talk and talk and talk. All of a sudden, a whole group of fairy tale strangers showed up. "What are you doing in my swamp?" cried Shrek. Shrek enjoyed his privacy and was quite annoyed with all the fairy tale creatures and Donkey. "I didn't invite them," Donkey said. Lord Farquaad, ruler of Diluc, had chased all the fairy tale creatures from his kingdom. Shrek started out to give Lord Farquaad a piece of his mind. Donkey tagged along. Meanwhile, Lord Farquaad was planning to marry the beautiful Princess Fiona. He had to hold a grand tournament to find a champion to rescue her from her tower. When Shrek arrived at the tournament, the Lord ordered his knights to fight Shrek instead. But they were no match for Shrek. Lord Farquaad was very impressed, and Shrek could have his quiet swamp back if he rescued the beautiful Princess Fiona from her tower. Donkey did not like the idea one bit, but Shrek was determined to rescue the princess and get his quiet life back. So they began their journey across the smoky fields. And soon they were in a dark castle with a fire-breathing dragon. Shrek managed to find Princess Fiona, while Donkey distracted the fire-breathing dragon. As they ran through the forest, Princess Fiona learned that Shrek really wanted his stinky swamp and quiet life, and he really did not care about saving her. Surprisingly, Shrek and Princess Fiona were a lot alike. And along the way home, they began to enjoy each other's company. Princess Fiona thought to herself that Shrek could not possibly feel the same way about her that she was feeling about him. So she continued on to marry Lord Farquaad. Shrek stomped off to his stinky swamp. He was quite sad and alone. Donkey saw how sad Shrek was, and he convinced Shrek he had to go tell Princess Fiona how he felt before she married Lord Farquaad. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona had a secret that would be revealed to the entire kingdom if the sun set before she received love's true kiss. When Shrek arrived, she was bathed in a dazzling light. Then the light started to fade. As the light faded, Princess Fiona transformed into a beautiful, green, female ogre. Lord Farquaad was horrified, but Shrek had never been happier. When Princess Fiona kissed Shrek, she wondered if she would be transformed back into the old dazzling princess. But she remained a green female ogre. "Oh dear, I am supposed to be beautiful," said Fiona. "But you are beautiful," said Shrek. They were in love. On his quest to protect his privacy, Shrek found true love and friendship instead. On the day of their wedding, the swamp overflowed with all their wonderful fairy tale friends. On the day of their wedding, the swamp overflowed with all of their wonderful friends and fairy tale creatures. The gingerbread man, Puss in Boots, the three blind mice, even Lord Farquaad and his knights came to celebrate the marriage of Shrek to his beautiful bride, Princess Fiona. donkey was so excited, he found it hard to be quiet while Shrek and Princess Fiona took their wedding vows. But he managed to control his excitement. Shrek and Princess Fiona were married in their beautiful stinky swamp and lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, a carpenter named Ali Baba lived with his wife in a forest in the Middle East. Ali Baba collected wood every day to sell. Ali Baba did not earn very much money, but did the best he could to provide for his family. One day, while collecting wood, Ali Baba heard the sound of many horses approaching. He tied up his donkey and hid behind a tree. Ali Baba then saw 40 men on horses stop and unload bags of gold coins and treasures. Ali Baba realized this group must be thieves. Just then, one of the men moved towards a large rock and started to shout, "Open sesame!" Suddenly, the large rock moved and revealed a cave. All the thieves loaded their bags into the cave. The rock closed over the cave opening after the thieves left their bags of treasure. The leader yelled, "Close sesame!" and the rock sealed the opening. The thieves left and Ali Baba could not believe what he had just seen. He ran over to the rock and yelled, "Open sesame!" The rock opened to reveal the cave. Ali Baba crept into the cave and was overwhelmed when he saw all the gold coins and treasures in the cave. He filled 3 bags and ran out of the cave. Just like the thief, Ali Baba shouted, "Close sesame!" The rock sealed the cave. Ali Baba loaded up his donkey and headed home to surprise his wife with all the treasures. His wife could not believe it. Ali Baba told her the whole story about the thieves and the cave. His wife wanted to see how much money they had. Ali Baba suggested they bury their newfound treasures. Ali Baba's wife agreed, but knew they needed to count the gold coins with a money cup first. She told Ali Baba they should borrow a money cup from his rich brother Kasim. Ali Baba warned his wife not to say a word about the treasure to anyone. Despite his warning, Ali Baba's wife secretly went to his brother Kasim's mansion and asked to borrow the money cup. Kasim lent her the cup but was suspicious, as he knew Ali Baba had no gold. He was just a poor carpenter. He secretly found out when Ali Baba's wife returned the cup that she had used it to measure gold. When Kasim found this out, he confronted Ali Baba. Ali Baba told his brother the whole story and made him promise not to speak a word of this to anyone. Kasim snuck out from his home in the night and went to the treasure cave. He shouted, "Open sesame!" And to his surprise, he saw all the treasures stacked inside. He filled many bags to load onto his donkeys. When he turned to leave, the cave door had slammed shut. Kasim could not remember what the words were to open the rock door. Just then, the 40 thieves arrived and found Kasim with the bags. They killed Kasim. Kasim's wife was worried when her husband disappeared. So she went to Ali Baba. Ali Baba knew where to look, and he visited the cave. Ali Baba found his dead brother. He told Kasim's wife about what had happened and offered to help her run his rich brother's business. Ali Baba and his wife moved into the mansion and helped Kasim's wife. Meanwhile, the thieves still wanted to find that treasure that had been stolen from their cave. They heard stories of a wealthy man, Ali Baba. The leader of the thieves devised a plan to sneak his thieves into the mansion, hidden away in olive oil barrels that he would sell to Ali Baba. His plan worked. But while Ali Baba and the thief were talking, Kasim's wife discovered the hidden thieves. She poured hot boiling oil into each barrel, and all the thieves died. The leader of the thieves was so scared, he ran out of the castle, never to return again. Ali Baba and his family lived a prosperous and happy life forever. Once upon a time, there was a lovely princess who liked to take long walks into the woods. She wanted to play by the beautiful pond in the woods. After a while, she came upon the lovely pond. She sat by the side of the pond and began skipping rocks and enjoying her time. She had brought with her her treasured golden ball, a special gift from her father, the king. It was her most treasured toy. She just loved it. She threw it up in the air and caught it many times. She threw up her golden ball again, and it came down with a splash and landed in the pond. "Oh no!" cried the princess. "My beautiful golden ball! How will I ever get it back?" Just then, she saw an ugly frog coming out of the pond. The frog spoke and asked her, why was she crying? The princess could not believe she was hearing a talking frog. She blinked her eyes, and then the frog offered to retrieve her ball if she would let him live with her in her castle. She agreed to the deal and said, "Of course." The frog jumped back into the pond and dove very deep down and retrieved the princess's golden ball from the bottom of the pond.
Wow.
He then gave it back to the princess. She was so excited to get her golden ball back that she began to run back to the castle, forgetting all about her deal, leaving the frog behind. The frog was very sad and yelled, "Don't forget our deal, that I will come and live with you in the castle." The princess answered back, "How can an ugly frog possibly live with me in my beautiful castle?" And she continued on her way. The frog knew he must go to see the princess at her castle. She had to keep the deal they had made. The frog knew he had to convince the princess she must let him stay with her, even if it was just for a night or two. The frog cleaned himself up so he looked his finest. He hopped out of the pond and started to hop towards the castle. The frog finally came to the castle during the dinner hour. He hopped into the dining room, and then the princess had to tell the king all about the deal she had made with the ugly frog, about how he retrieved her golden ball from the bottom of the pond, and that he expected to come and live in the castle for retrieving the ball. The king listened to the story, and he insisted she must keep her word, and he welcomed the frog in. The frog hopped along and followed the princess to her room. He made himself very cozy on a bunch of pillows on her beautiful bed. He then fell asleep. In the morning, the frog awoke the princess and asked her for a favor. The frog asked the princess to kiss him, and he would leave her alone forever. The princess was annoyed by the frog, but she could not believe it, and she said, "Why would I kiss an ugly frog?" Just then, a tiny teardrop came out of the frog's eye. The princess saw the teardrop and thought she'd best give the frog a kiss. Then he would just go away anyway. As she kissed the frog, he turned into the most handsome prince. The princess could not believe her eyes. The handsome prince told her how the evil witch had cast a spell on him and had turned him into the ugly frog. The only thing that would break the spell was a kiss from a lovely princess. When the princess heard this story, she fell in love with him immediately. The prince then asked her to marry him. She said yes. They held the wedding by the beautiful pond, and they lived happily ever after in the beautiful castle. Every afternoon after school, the children loved to play in a huge garden that surrounded the deserted castle. They loved to play there. One day while playing, a great voice yelled out, "What are you doing in my garden?" It seems the giant had returned back to his castle, and he did not want the children to play there. He shouted at them and told them to leave and never come back. They all ran away as fast as they could. The giant then built a huge spiked fence around his garden, so none of the children could ever get in. The giant put a large gate in the fence with a sign that said, "Keep out," in big black letters. The children would pass by and look sadly at their favorite place to play. They really missed playing in the beautiful garden. Soon fall and winter came and covered everything in snow and frost. The giant looked out his castle window at his snow-covered garden and wished for spring to come. Spring did come, everywhere except in the giant's garden. The snow and frost were thrilled to have a place to stay forever. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard a bird singing. He leapt from his bed to look out the window. His whole garden was in spring bloom. The snow and frost were finally gone. Then he noticed all the children playing in his garden. You see, they had snuck into the garden through a hole in the wall, and spring had followed them in. One little boy was crying because he could not climb the trees like all the other children. He was just too small to reach. The giant helped the small boy to the top of the tree. The little boy gave the giant a hug and a kiss and said thank you. The giant thought it was time to let the children play in his garden, so he knocked down the big wall. The children played every day in the giant's beautiful garden. When the giant realized he had not seen the little boy he had helped to the top of the tree, he asked the other children, "Where is your little friend?" "We do not know," said the children. The giant asked the children every day if they had seen their little friend. The children told the giant, "The only day we saw him was the day you knocked down the wall." The years passed and the giant grew old and weak, and he could no longer play with the children. One cold winter morning, he was looking out the window, and he noticed the most beautiful tree he had ever seen.
Wow!
The tree was covered with delicate white blossoms with silver fruit, and beneath the tree was the little boy who had gone missing for so long. "He's come back at last," said the giant joyfully. Forgetting how old and weak he was, the giant rushed down the castle stairs and hurried across the garden. But as he neared closer towards the little boy, he saw bruises and cuts and nail marks in his hands and feet. "Who has hurt you?" asked the giant. "As old and feeble as I am, I will kill the people who have done this to you." The small child smiled gently and said, "Hush, don't be angry, but come with me." "Who are you?" whispered the giant, falling to his knees. "A long time ago, you let me play in your garden," the child replied. "Now, I want you to come and play in my garden. It is called Paradise." That afternoon, when the children came to play in the garden in the winter snow, they found their giant friend lying dead. The old giant looked so peaceful. He seemed to have a beautiful, peaceful, gentle smile on his quiet face. The giant was covered in small, beautiful white flower blossoms. The children thought he looked so happy and at rest. They said sweet prayers for him to be playing with children angels in a gorgeous paradise garden forever. The children always remembered the giant for his kind heart and generous spirit, and played in his garden forever.